Good morning.
Annapolis. A pleasure to see everybody.
Good morning, Rabbi Karp.
Now, originally, I was supposed to talk with you all on Sukkot, but we had a schedule change, which worked out for everybody. But we're going to have a little bit of a hangover from Sukkot, which is a good thing. I have a very close student by the name of David Kane, and he's always asking me, you have a holiday, and you pardon the expression from the 1960s, you get high on the holiday. Besides the high holiday, you have a spiritual uplifting, and how you're supposed to carry it on for during the year. So my friend, student David, is always looking for ways to try to grab pieces of a holiday and keep a little bit on to stay inspired over there. But of course, if right after the holiday's finished, you talk a little bit about it and you have some good stories and some experiences, so that's a little bit of a head start for however people are going to hold on to the holiday. Now, Mrs. Leibowitz in the kitchen. Now you see, they got the song wrong, right? Someone's in the kitchen with Ida, right? But they have to say someone's in the kitchen with Mrs. Leibowitz, and it's Steve. Mrs. Leibowitz had pointed out some very, very good ideas for hanging on to the holiday. Steve, this is the first time we are quoting Counselor Dory. And that's because we spoke about Oliver Wendell Holmes and the legal profession, so we got to go to Mrs. Dory Leibowitz. So Dory had mentioned that there are many, many beautiful customs with what to do with this. Some people will do different things to it and coat it with cloves, C-L-O-V-E-S, and making it besamim for Havdalah. Now those who do that project, you have a Sukkot remembrance the entire year. Mrs. Leibowitz was mentioning that she knows people that make it into jelly, and there's people that make it into liquor. And Mrs. Leibowitz said there are people that make it into a fragrant citronella soap. And then your wife said, you see, you're going to have to sing Ashes Chayil 2 times this week. Your dear wife also said that she knows people that not only do they do projects with the etrog, they collect the boxes and the insulation, and they're just making endless projects with it. So these are all great ideas, and I got to tell my friend David, because this is just finding lots of ways to hold on to the holiday and to schlep it on a little bit more. But I'm going to go and give some honor to my father. Now, we spoke in the Dvar Torah about people who had a certain mindset and did things a certain way for years and decided to change, which is not an easy thing for anybody. So I want to share with you a Sukkot incident that happened with my father. And in this story, I guess I could say I'm the bad guy. In the end, they do live happily ever after, but not initially. Let me tell you what happened. Now, if I had to give a title to this, the title would be, You Never Know What You Learned in Your Childhood That Might Save You. Okay? If we made a book at it, that's what it would be. You never know what you learned in your childhood that might save you, or might save somebody else. So this is what happened. My father grew up in Slonim in Poland, okay? He grew up in an observant family. My father's name was Arthur Karp. He escaped the Holocaust. No one else in the family did. His parents sent him here in 1938 at the age of 16, but he was the only one from that immediate family that made it out, from Rachaleah and Yosef Karpovsky's children. Now, my father grew up with lulav and esrog. He knew about it, lulav, esrog, hadassah, marav, sukkahs. He grew up with those kind of things. But remember, my father was from a poor family, and a very high percentage of Slonim's Jews was poor. Slonim still exist. In my father's day, it was Lithuania. If you speak to older Russian Jews, they'll tell you now it's part of Belarusia. But it's there. Okay, and it's not a little place either. Well, my father and mother sent me to Ner Israel Rabbinical College, And it comes this time of the year, and the yeshiva has a sign up, Arba Minim for sale. Come buy your lulav, etrog, adasim, aravis. Come buy it over here. Actually, they didn't sell the aravis, the willows you had to get yourself, which is a good idea because in those days you didn't have the super duper vacuum packed. Those days, Bruce is thinking those days. Harry, you're not even 60 yet. Don't talk like that. All right, 1973. Yesterday, huh? All right, anyway, 1973, they didn't have the really good vacuum-packed aravis. You got your own willows. I was a little disappointed. I came home. I said, Ma, I need willows. She says, Harry, no problem. We have 2 gigantic willow trees in the backyard. Guess what? Weeping willows. Weeping willows won't cut it. I remember calling the rabbi to discuss it. My mother's weeping willows, all right? And I remember the rabbi saying, take a look on the leaves if they have zegelach. What's a zegelach? All right, those are little tooth things along it. So there's a lot of different species of willows. All I know is my mother's chocolate chip cookies were great. Her French toast was awesome, but my mother's willows weren't good. In the end, I wound up walking down the street, and a neighbor had wild willows growing in the sewer drain, and those were good. It makes sense. The beautiful weeping willows from Louisiana in my mother's backyard are no good. The ones growing out of the sewer, they were good. This is one crazy religion. All right, but it worked. Got them for free, who cares? So anyway, have a sign in yeshiva, you could buy your lulav, esrog, and all that. And in those days, the prices were great, so I wanted to go buy one. Now, Rabbi Weissman just wants you to show, as Charlie Chaplin would say, we're living in modern times, and we have vacuum-packed delicatessen and vacuum-packed aravot, but in 1973, near Israel, and nobody else was selling these, so you were on your own. All right, so be happy. Technology is a great thing. I worked in Lancaster, but I'm telling you, don't be Amish. Enjoy technology. I'm sorry, all the black hat Amish people who may be watching this, but you're obviously Reform Amish if you're watching this on the internet. All right, but anyway, so I see the sign, and I call my dad, Oliver Shalom, and I said, Dad, could I have a check for Arba Minim? That year it was $30. In Baltimore, if you go to the right place, you can get a $30 Arba Minim set. You got to know where to go. For a while it was impossible, but as Rabbi Weissbaum knows, the rabbis got together and they were considering a boycott or a price ceiling. The rabbis went with a price ceiling, and all the sellers of lulav and metrogim had to follow the rules or else. So Baltimore has a price ceiling. Many visitors to Baltimore compliment us, saying that they wish their rabbis had the guts our rabbis did to do a price ceiling. Now, just in case, Steve, now we quoted your wife, so we have to give you something, all right? This bud's for you. If you don't understand that, the rabbi will explain it to you. But anyway, this bud's for you. The Chafetz Chaim says, and this is in the Mishnah Berurah, and it's available in English. You hear that, Dr. Praetorius? It's available in English. The Chafetz Chaim says, never mind the etrog dealers, Chafetz Chaim says, if the gefilte fish dealers get out of hand, and they're charging too much, and they won't listen, the community is allowed to organize a boycott. Could you imagine? Now, don't call the Chafetz Chaim a socialist or anything like that, even though he was in Russia, but or close to Russia, whatever. But the Chafetz Chaim says the halacha is, and he proves it from the Talmud, that if the vendors are getting out of hand with gefilte fish or any necessary product, that the community is allowed to organize a boycott, and the rabbis can announce in shul, we're not having gefilte fish till further notice, till the price goes down. And some of you are thinking, free enterprise system, what's going on over here? So anyway, so I'm just telling you, there is such a thing. If people are trying to make too many bucks off you on religious articles, there's a way out, And that's the Chafetz Chaim, who everybody pictures as, Rabbi Gentle. But it's there, black and white, and you can get it in English or Hebrew, whatever language you want. that he condones boycotts on gefilte fish. So Steve, if this ever happens, you will lead us, okay? Wouldn't that be great? National TV, Steve and Dory there, holding up a thing of Rokich and singing "We Shall Overcome" in Yiddish. It'll be great. It'll be great. But let me tell you what happened with Dad. So I said, Dad, can I please have $30 for a lulav and esrog? And I thought this would be easy. And my father said, no. I said, Dad, come on, you're from Europe. You know what a lulav and esrog is. I understand you give me the money for everything else. He goes, it's not necessary. Dad, what do you mean it's not necessary? You know about lulav and esrog. You know better than me. You grew up with it. Europe, the real deal. My father said, it is absolutely not necessary. I said, Dad, I don't understand what's going on over here. He said, Harry, in Europe, there was no such thing as having your own lulav and esrog. No such thing. The rabbi had, the rich people had, and that's it. Regular people don't get a lulav and esrog. You go to the shul and use the shuls. Now, we all are trained to believe everything our parents say. I'm not even going to get started with that, right? With names of famous movies and TV shows. I'm not even going to start with that. My father always told the truth. I asked around the yeshiva, and they said, your father's right. That's the way it was. In Europe, no such thing. Your father's not crazy. Your father's not wrong. I said, that's it. They said, no, don't give up. This is America. But your father is not being mean. Now, you have to understand, my father, Olav Shalom, because he came from a very poor family, was a very giving and generous person. My father, he used to tell me, when I wouldn't eat the way I was supposed to, he would say, you know how many nights I went to sleep without supper and you're telling mommy to throw half the steak in the garbage? I was a rotten kid. Bruce, that's why you and I get along so well together. Right? We have something in common. So, Bruce, were you a rotten kid? No, you can't. Yeah, this is recorded. You can't say it in the deposition. So anyway, my father was a very, very giving person. When guests would come over, there was one word my father didn't comprehend, and that word was no. Because my father was serving you, and he would say, would you like a second or third helping? And you would say no. He would say, fine, here. And I've spoken to other people. I hear this is a common Jewish parent and grandparent problem, that they don't know that word. But my father was just so excited because in Europe he starved so often, or he ate food that we wouldn't even dream of eating. I don't want to tell you the kinds of meats that my father had to eat when meat was available, because only Steve will understand and the rest of you are just going to get sick. But when my father had food and he had the plenty and he had a good job, Baruch Hashem, he wanted to share and share and share to friends and family. He was a very, very giving person. So I really was surprised about the lulav and esrog. So I'm thinking, what am I going to do? How am I going to get across to my father that this is America? And my father was really into being American. Really being into America. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons I wound up in Ner Israel, originally I was in a New York yeshiva, which shall remain nameless. And my father liked the place, but he didn't like it that much, because it didn't have the best secular program, and the guys, they dressed okay, but not quite American enough for my father's taste. So eventually I wound up in Ner Israel. My father felt Ner Israel, at least for that time, was very cosmopolitan. He liked the way the guys dressed. He liked the secular program. He liked the Ner Israel. At that time, more than 50% of the guys went to college. He liked the way the rabbis carried themselves. He was very, very much, he was one of those immigrants that really wanted he and his children to be very, very Americanized in every way. Big time. He was terrific with that. So I'm trying to understand why he won't give me the $30. So I spoke to my father another time. Nothing doing. He says, Harry, your own lulav and esrog, I never say no to you, but it's just not necessary. I never heard of such a thing. I can't, I don't mind giving out money, but I don't see the necessity. So I'm trying to figure out, because technically he's right, but it's different times. And then I did something very, very bad. And I had to apologize for this. And you will all agree that I was wrong. I said to my, now this is in the 70s. In the 70s, there was a piece of furniture that was an absolute sign that you made it. And that was the stereo console. Do you remember that, Bruce? It was a color TV. And remember, at that time, a lot of people still had black and white. It was a color TV with a radio, FM. I know you're thinking that's dumb. But in those days, not everybody had an FM radio. And a real relic, a phonograph.
A record player on the top?
Yeah. And it was in a beautiful piece of polished wooden furniture. And my father had bought one of those. And as Norman Lear, I think he's still alive, as Norman Lear of All in the Family and Jefferson's fame said, if my father had a console stereo, he's moving on up. Moving on up. So this was the only time in my life I think I was chutzpahdik to my father, and I was dead wrong. And I could have gotten killed, because my father was a very, very strong man. I said, Dad, you seem to have plenty of money for the console stereo. How come I can't have for the esrog? Ooh! I'll hate. My father's hand should have come for the phone and smacked me. But instead he said, you know, that was uncalled for, you're out of line. And I apologized immediately. Because he was right and I was wrong. And no matter what it is, even for whatever mitzvah it is, your father's your father, you don't talk that way. Especially when your father is somewhat right in this case. All right. So I apologize, he accepted, and I'm still trying to figure out a good argument. So here's where the theme comes in of what you learned in your childhood. So I was in yeshiva searching through the books, trying to find out the importance of having your own lulav and esrog, not having your own lulav and esrog, and I come across that the Vilna Gaon, who lived in Europe, who lived in Poland, he writes, very simply, in the back of his siddur, he says, okay, shul, everybody could share a lulav and esrog, but it's much better to have your own, period. So my scheme began to hatch. Now, my father had mixed memories from Cheder, all kinds of memories. When they decided to send me to a Jewish day school in upstate New York, Kaimisha Lake. In Jewish history, Kaimisha Lake is important because that's where the Concord Hotel was. It's God. So anyway, when they sent me to that, you can't really call it a cheder, a Jewish day school, my father was a little nervous because he had mixed memories from Europe about cheder. They whacked you a lot more there. Some of the teachers are good. Some of them were backward. You hear a lot of different stories. You hear great stories, you hear terrible stories. But, luckily for me, my father had a Rebbe there named Rabbi Mirsky. Rabbi Mirsky. I even saw a picture of him. Before my father died, he gave me the Slonim Shtetl book. You may have heard there's such a thing as a Shtetl book, that after the Holocaust, people got together, survivors got together, and they got all the pictures and all the information they could, and they compiled the book for as many shtetls as they could. So my father had one for Slonim, and his Rebbe, Rabbi Mirsky, was in there. So Rabbi Mirsky, my father loved. He didn't love all his Rebbes there, but he loved Rabbi Mirsky. So I took a gamble. Maybe Rabbi Mirsky taught my father about the Vilna Gaon, Rabbi Yo from Vilna. 1720 to 1797. Lived the same time as George Washington or wherever else you like from that era. I said, Dad, regular phone call, how you doing? All the pleasantries. I said, Dad, did Rabbi Mirsky ever teach you about the Vilna Gaon? Oh, sure. My father had a happy tone in his voice. Sure, the Vilna Gaon. Oh, greatest rabbi, Poland, Russia. Oh, I learned all about him. I learned a lot about him. I said, Dad, did you ever go to Vilna? Oh, yeah, one time. Oh, Vilna, Varsha, Bialystok. Oh, those were the big cities. That was a big trip for a guy for me. Oh, that was wonderful. I said, Dad, so is your tradition from Europe that if the Vilna Gaon says something, it has some weight? Oh, absolutely. I said, Dad, well, you sent me to this nice yeshiva near Israel, and I saw the other day that the Vilna Gaon, he says what you said. He said that you don't have to have your own lulav and etchig, but he says it would be better if someone could have their own. I just want you to know he said that. My father said, he says that. Yeah, Dad. Harry, checks in the mail. So in the end, my father, after having a lifetime in growing up, that there's no such thing as having your own lulav and esrog, because a Rebbe, when he was I don't know what age, spoke well about the Vilna Gaon and planted a seed in dear old Dad's head. That was the buzzword, the buzz rabbi that got me the lulav and esrog. And there was no arguing after. There never was any arguing after that. Once my father, and again, my father was not an observant man at that point, but once he heard the Vilna Gaon said it, not absolutely necessary, but once Dad heard it was a good thing, he gave me the money. Never had any more problems. So that's why I started with, you never know what you're going to hear when you're a kid that might save you or someone else, or somewhere else. In that case, the Vilna Gaon was my point man. The Vilna Gaon, by the way, was very close to the mitzvah of lulav and esrog. In all the biographies, at least all the ones I saw, the way the account goes, when the Vilna Gaon was headed towards the end, there were two things that really, really stood out. At one point, he started crying like a baby. And those around him said, Rebbe, what are you crying? What are you scared of? You're a great man. You're going to go to a good place in heaven. What are you worried about? So he pulled out his tzitzis and he held them up and he says, in this world, for a few rubles, whatever it was, the currency there, for a few rubles, you get to do a mitzvah. Just like this. Easy mitzvah, tzitzis, talis. Over there, that's pay-up time. No more new mitzvahs. I'm going to miss that. Take advantage while you can. But at the end, he died clutching a lulav and esrog as he died. So I guess it worked out well that the Vilna Gaon saved me in the dilemma with my dad, because he had that closeness that that's how he passed on, clutching the mitzvah. He died this time of the year. So he was my man. All right. So that's I don't want to kiss goodbye to lulav and esrog, because Dory said we should do something with it. Just a little note on the sukkah. Now, the Talmud has a problem. Talmud has a lot of challenges. One of the biggest challenges of the Talmud is relevancy. So we have two dilemmas. Sometimes you learn a Gemara and you say, is that relevant to my time? Does that apply anymore? Anything like that still going on or not? That's one question that everybody has at one time or another, and we work with it. And the other question is, sometimes the Talmud will say something so hair-raising that you'll say, was that ever relevant? Did anybody ever need to know that ever? What's it doing there? Is it just elementary? So I'll tell you what happened. Now, it's very important to have the right women in your life, right? You got to have the right women in your life, whoever that may be. Now, when I got married, the custom was, and still is, that a kala very often buys a set of shas, a set of Talmud for her chassan. Okay, fine. So my father-in-law, on behalf of my dear wife, bought me a new, becoming popular set of shas, and it was put out by Lubavitch. Now, I got to tell you something neat about Lubavitch. Lubavitch needs agents. You know when you're a movie star, you need an agent? Bruce, you need an agent. Elliot needs an agent. Make you more famous, make you more money. Everybody needs an agent. But Lubavitch, they had some giants that need an agent. Now, everybody has heard of, the Schneerson name and all that, great, wonderful people. But you should just know, Lubavitch had some other giants. Big people, tremendous people. You hear people toss the word God all around. Giants, that could apply to them. So there were two brothers, and the last name was Gur Ari. Now, if you Google Gur Aryeh, it will come up that there are some Lubavitcher Shlichim out there from that family. They're around. But there were two brothers that were giants of Torah, and the one in particular was Rabbi Nathan, Rabbi Nosson Gur Aryeh. Giant man. And he put out a shas with his notes on the side. Now, this man must have been so incredible and so learned. Just about on every topic he has some notes on the side that at least when I got married in 1980, the average Talmud didn't have it. And this man, absolutely incredible, absolutely incredible. So I was learning Gemara Gittin, and I was learning a Mishnah that seemed like it was never relevant. Never relevant. He was discussing a case of divorce, and the Mishnah was writing about wacky things to write a get on. And it spoke there about writing a divorce bill on the horn of a cow, on a leaf. Just about everything in the Mishnah was just like, what is this? What is this? So those who had the regular set of Talmud, my dear friends in Kollel, I was only in Kollel a short time, they said, don't worry about it. It's a mitzvah to learn Torah. It doesn't make a difference if it's going to happen or not. It's academic. We get a mitzvah. And look at this Taisvus and look at that Rambam. It doesn't make a difference. Okay. But then I opened up my new and improved Talmud from Rabbi Nosson Gur Aryeh Lubavitch, and he asked the question. Harry's not an idiot. A great Chabad rabbi asked the question. And he says, I bet this Mishnah bothers you. Certainly would have bothered you. He goes, let me tell you what's going on. The Mishnah is not crazy. The Mishnah is not irrelevant. It's not just academic. Rabbi Gur Aryeh explains that this Mishnah was from a time in history like Hanukkah, when Jews were not allowed to keep mitzvahs, when Jews were not allowed to have Jewish documents. So the Jewish people had to find wild tricks to conceal their Jewish documents. So the Jews found, if I write the document on a leaf, or I write the document on the horn of a cow, I probably won't get caught. So the great Rabbi Gur Aryeh from Chabad said, this Mishnah is not a banana. It's not even an esrog. It is coming from the time when Jews had to hide their mitzvahs, or else who knows what would happen to them. And once I saw that from Rabbi Gur Aryeh, I realized it was dominoes. There are many other places in the Talmud and the Mishnah that were similar, and if you would do a little research, and you would realize, you know what, that must have been from the troubled times when the Jews had to have a top secret way of doing things. And the more you read about Jewish history, you find other stories like that. Now, so why am I bringing all this up, besides sharing Rabbi Nosson Gur Aryeh, another super duper giant from Lubavitch, who you may have read his books without realizing is, there was a man, I'm sure you all heard of Encyclopedia Talmudit, the Talmudical Encyclopedia, which wasn't finished by the original. That was from a gadol from Chabad named Rabbi Shlomo Yosef Zevin. He also wrote Tales of Hasidim. The man was incredible, very prolific. He wrote on everything. He also, you could call him a Rebbe in his own right, but he didn't conduct himself that way. And he also was very, very brilliant in secular knowledge. I'll tell you what cracks me up about Rabbi Zevin. Rabbi Zevin wrote on everything in the Torah. Whatever you want. Agoda, halacha, philosophy, encyclopedia, Talmudis. The man was absolutely incredible. But he knew a lot of secular knowledge too. He has an essay, a deep essay on, now you got to help me with this. Who in Shakespeare said, "You will pay me with a pound of flesh"? Help me.
Shylock.
Shylock. That's what I thought. See, I knew to depend on you because I hated Shakespeare with a passion in high school, so I needed someone who didn't hate it as much as I do. Did you like it?
More than you.
See, my mother still doesn't know to this.
Just not the anti-Semitic parts.
So Rabbi Zevin Zeichet Tzadik Livracha has a pages and pages essay on Shylock's statement of a pound of flesh, and he discusses, is there such a concept anywhere in Judaism? And Rabbi Zevin goes to review the piece from Shylock in the Torah book, and then he goes all over the Torah, seeing if there ever was such an application. So you're a very, very interesting man also. No, it's just good to know. I mean, no, God bless the Shneers and rabbis. It's just good to know that Chabad had a lot of other very, very wonderful people there who we still can benefit from. But there is another Gemara that is similar to what Rabbi Geraya was talking about, and I want to send off Sukkos with this. The Gemara says you can make a round sukkah. Okay, now most people like that Gemara because when everybody learns the Gemara in Sukkah about the round Sukkah, now it's a little bit funky. When the Gemara discusses round Sukkah, it doesn't call it a round Sukkah. It calls it Sukkah Asuya Kikivshan, a Sukkah made like a round oven. Steve, you ever cook with a round oven?
In very olden times, people did.
Oh, the old-fashioned Steves.
Or
Okay.
these new pizzas, these new great pizzas they use around.
Okay. So anyway, everybody likes that Gemara.
In Gaza, they still do it.
Our side or their side?
When I was
Okay.
in service in Gaza, I saw it.
Oh, okay. Now everybody likes that Gemara because everybody goes, "Ooh, math class! I can use my geometry knowledge to figure out the round sukkah circumference, this and that." And all the kids that grumble during math class say, "Oh, it has a use, it has a use." They like that Gemara. All right, so the round sukkah, that's not so bad. I personally had a round sukkah 1 year of my life, and the way I wound up with a round sukkah was due to my own negligence. You know how people in your house tell you, "We're finished with that object, could you please put it away?" You know, there's always someone in the house that says that. "We are finished with that, whether it's the sukkah or anything else in the house, could you please put it away?" So 1 year, I didn't listen to my wife about putting the sukkah boards away on time. And I didn't listen, and I didn't listen. And it snowed and I didn't listen. Over the course of the year, from one Sukkot to the next Sukkot, I had a board that got so warped and bent, I used it to make a round sukkah. Now you're thinking, what kind of table did you use? So this gets even better. I stole this idea from a friend. I look out in the alley one day. Baltimore alleys are strange places. Don't go there, I like you. There was, you know when the utility guys come, they have these spools of wire, these giant spools of wire. So I look out in the alley, so one day there's a giant spool without the wire rolling back and forth in the alley. So what is that? So you call the electric company, they don't know, they don't care. So it's there, 1 week, 2 weeks, asked some questions, made some calls, mine! So that round spool without the wire became the round table for this night of the round sukkah. All right, but a round sukkah happening isn't so irrelevant, but I'll tell you what sounds irrelevant. Gemara says you can make a sukkah in a ditch. Now, most people think that's very interesting, but I would never do that. If you are a student of the Midwest and you like to study the Dust Bowl, right? The terrible thing that happened out in the Middle West, that experiment that failed with planting the wrong plants and the tumbleweeds. So if you ever study, there's some great books on it. It was a very sad time in our history. There were people who lived in ditches. Because with the winds and everything and the dirt got and everything, there were people who lived in ditches. All right, but normal people don't live in ditches. So when people learn that Gemara, they ask Rabbi Gur Aryeh's question again. What do I need that Gemara for? I'm going to make a sukkah in a ditch? What am I going to make a sukkah in a ditch
The
for?
rabbi from my yeshiva would always tell us when he read that Gemara that in the Yom Kippur War, he did a sukkah in a ditch.
So I'm going to tell you where he got that from, and his predecessor, which is Nomish said the same thing. Beautiful. It is documented that during World War I, there were Hasidim from Ger Hasidus. Now we all know World War I is famous for trench warfare. A lot of bad things came with trench warfare, right? The guys could be stuck there for weeks. There was trench foot. A lot of terrible, there were good things, but I think there were much more bad things. Horrible stories about it. Stepping over your buddies, and if it rained, and the disease, forget about it. But they were Ger Hasidim that were fighting in World War I, and they were in the trenches, foxholes, and it was Sukkot. And they contacted the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said, yeah, go ahead. So they turned their World War I trenches into Sukkot, right out of the Gemara. So you had Hasidim with schach and a rifle, machine gun. Where's Mr. Sliam when I need him? World War I, whatever they had over there, Gatling gun, whatever it was. And, so you take a few shots, go down, Leishe Bazooka, or Leishe Bazooka, whatever the old joke is. But there they are. So as Weissbaum's favorite son pointed out, not Tom's son here, I can say that, okay, right, that they were doing it. They made a sukkah in a trench, in a ditch, and people keep doing it. We just got to hope that they don't have to keep doing such a thing. But I'm just saying that was just an example from Sukkot, how a Gemara, when you first look at it, you would say, what are they talking about this for? But then, it turns out to be relevant for somebody. All right, so next time that we come to visit, we'll have to get back to our main man, David HaMelech, especially since he was from the Ushpizin and the Sukkah, visiting him, and Dr. Friedman leaves us with a great question. Dr. Friedman's question is, King David had 18 wives. When he came for the Ushpizin, did all 18 come? Have a great day.
I